Let's update your freeways for you now using the element.
Different? Are they better? Are they happy? Should we envy them, pity them, or hate their guts?
The problem is drugs in our country, and
Good morning. This is Don Rush with the news for Monday, December 9th. Today, 300 peace activists from over 40 countries arrived in Panama to begin the Central American Peace March. It was conceived at a meeting in Norway last October and will begin tomorrow in Panama City. The marchers will then proceed to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, ending in Mexico City on January 22nd.
We met in Panama, 300 of us from over 30 nations.
We were doctors and teachers,
housewives and students,
journalists,
filmmakers,
trade unionists,
and politicians.
Our youngest was 16.
Our oldest 75.
We were Catholics and Jews.
We were Methodists and Buddhists.
Presbyterians and atheists.
We have nothing in common except Central America.
For 40 days, we'd travel across it.
We'd become a part of it and part of its history.
And after we'd gone, we'd never forget it.
And we'd never really leave it behind.
We were 300 strangers who'd become a family in those 40 days.
We were the International March for Peace.
One of the major reasons I went to Central America was because I feel that it is important to take action regarding one's beliefs. I felt very strongly about our government's commitment to violence in Central America. I oppose it strongly.
I wanted to bring a message of peace to the people of Central America and let them know that they are not alone. The world is watching and is aware of the injustice that they are suffering now.
I knew there was something screwy going on down there in Central America. So when I read about the march and realized that I had some time and money, I decided I'd just go ahead and do it.
I was assigned to Central America as a Maryknoll priest, and living there in the 60s, I saw many of my friends killed, and I felt a commitment to them and to peace and justice in Central America, and I thought the march was one way of living up to that commitment for them.
What happens if you get stopped at the border? Have you got other plans?
We are a nonviolent march, and we will use nonviolent methods in our march the entire way.
We are not KGB people or CIA people or Sandinistas.
We are for non-military solutions. We are for solutions that include the Latin American people. This is what we're here to promote.
From the first day of the march, we were thrown into the controversy of Central American politics. The entire region had become polarized around the issues of war and peace. Lines had been drawn. There were those that supported diplomatic alternatives and those that wanted a military solution. In Panama, the government had welcomed the march enthusiastically because Panama had been the first of 8 Latin American nations to sign the Contadora Peace Plan, which called for an end to foreign military intervention and advocated negotiated solutions to the problems in Central America. However, those that supported a military escalation had run a smear campaign against us in the press, labeling us subversives and communists.
The big propaganda war. It seems like what's going on.
Channel 4, for instance, came out with this terrible editorial about us saying that we're communists, and they had this leaflet, you know, that somebody fabricated, and that was enough proof.
No, I'm not an extremist left-wing radical.
The Peace March is an independent, peaceful, non-violent action. The easiest way, of course, to neutralize and hurt a peace march like this is to call it the Communist March.
While the press was debating what we were, We were trying to decide who we were and how we'd ever survive 6 weeks in Central America.
I'm just going to introduce myself quickly because I and Heinrich here are the doctors. If you need us, there's also, where are you? A nurse. There's no organized healthcare until we get the ambulance in the sense of a place where you can go. There'll be a Red Cross on one of the buses where we have bandages and first aid. You can get that. If it's more urgent or more difficult, you'll have to find either Heinrich or me.
I'm with the Australian group and we're cleaning the dormitories. Please can all packs and everything be off the floor so we can clean all the shit out from under your beds.
If the toilets are dirty, people who are using the facilities should sluice down the toilets or should take the empty cartons out of the fridge because we have to care about each other. How can we say that we're peace people if we don't even care about each other?
We could start by respecting everyone's right to go to sleep at night. Because I don't know about anyone else, but I'm pretty exhausted through just not sleeping because people are running around at 2 in the morning, talking outside where we're sleeping.
I cannot handle all of their needs. Of course. Do you know, I was up at 2 this morning. Let me tell you something. I went to bed at 2 o'clock. No, but I couldn't. I went to bed at 2 o'clock. I slept 1 hour. I was awake at 3, making notes. I went at 4 o'clock to make breakfast. I had to find copies. You can't imagine. You get copies.
There is the other delegation who is going to receive the key of Panama Ciudad, another delegation going to the Catholic University, and another delegation meeting parliamentarians.
There's so many cameras and tape recorders that it looks a bit ridiculous and can turn us into something of a carnival. Where we're going is very poor areas, and this distances us from the people to have all this high-tech equipment. When you look back at those pictures of the Selma marches and the civil rights marches, you don't see people holding cameras, you see them in solidarity, and it takes away from the spirituality of the movement to have all this high-tech gear.
There have been men that work here and live here. It wasn't until we were here for 4.5, 5 days before anybody even went up to them and asked them their name, before anyone even asked them if they were sleeping in their bed, before anyone had even asked them what they were doing for working here. As it turns out, you know, they very well may be refugees from another country, but no one really even gave them the time of day. And I really think that if they've been living here and you're walking around them and you're nodding your head at them but continue to ignore them, that I can't understand where anyone is saying that we are, like, you know, trying to express some sort of solidarity with any people.
I don't want to be at all defensive about the 157 errors we've made so far. I just think it would be a waste of time, that we just try to improve as we go.
There shall be absolutely no illegal drugs. If anyone is found with an illegal drug, they are
We had endless meetings, and we discussed each item ad nauseum. And in many cases, it was hell to go through this process. But at the same time, it brought us all closer together as a group, and for me it was a wonderful education in what democracy really is.
Are we going to have majority rule? Are we going to have consensus? How are we going to get fed? You know, just every question that could possibly be asked were asked in those first few days.
So there's everybody in Panama sitting around in their Nikes, ready to march. They have to spend days talking about toilets and who's going to sleep where and interpersonal issues and all that sort of stuff. And meanwhile, here's this huge military base. They're full of North American soldiers who are definitely going to be very involved if there is a conflict in Central America. If there is an actual war in Central America, Panama will be right in the middle of it. And the people had come from all these different countries to draw attention to that fact, and they wanted to get up and march.
Till I go down, till I go down, oh yeah, till I go down, I'm not gonna shut my eyes till I go down.
My name is Bruce Curtis. I am from San Francisco, California. Estoy de California. I want permission to enter the base for peace.
Por lo tanto,
no podemos permitir la entrada a dicha base.
My name is Ginny Keating, and I'm from Greenham Common in England. And I'm very interested in US Army bases, and I'd like to ask you if you have nuclear weapons here.
Fort Howard symbolized what we were protesting. Here in the center of Panama City was a U.S. military base that trained the Contras, supplied the Salvadorian military in its bombing raids, and directed U.S. military actions throughout Latin America. The U.S. military presence here and its control of the canal had always been a point of controversy with the Panamanians, representing a threat to their sovereignty. Panama opposed U.S. actions in Nicaragua, but if that war expanded involving U.S. troops, Panama and this base would be the center of operations, and the country would be committed to a war it didn't support.
I'm Sarah, a Christian woman from Greenham, and I would like to speak to the American Roman Catholic chaplain of this base.
I'm Gemma from Greenham Common also. I object to your presence there and I object to American presence here.
The people of Panama understood and appreciated the symbolism of the demonstration at Fort Howard. And by the time we left the country, the press had turned around and come out in support of the march. But up ahead in Costa Rica, articles were appearing in the newspapers, once again labeling us communists and subversives.
The police authority in Costa Rica would like to ask us to change our minds and not to go there because they didn't know whether they could protect us. This is an indication of some of the tension in Costa Rica at this time of presidential election.
The eyes of the world are on us. The eyes of the Costa Rican people are on us. Now, unfortunately, most of the Costa Rican people have misinformation about us. And the media here really whipped up people against us, saying, you know, that we're all communists.
300 peace campaigners were stranded at a Costa Rican border post today, surrounded by angry mobs shouting, "Communists out." The Costa Rican government says it will not allow the peace marchers to enter Costa Rica because their presence would disrupt the upcoming presidential elections.
We are enough a peaceable country, you know. We don't need this kind of situation here, you know.
We're going to try to blockade the march because we believe it's a threat. There are terrorist movements. The M19 of Colombia has members in the march, and it has another terrorist association, the OLP, PLO.
In my opinion,
we knew the march had wide support in Costa Rica, but we were met on the border by Costa Rica Libre, a right-wing paramilitary group connected to the Contras.
If the authorities of Costa Rica escort the march to Nicaragua, we might let it go.
If the authorities of Costa Rica
escort throughout and they don't let him stop at all, we might.
The bus company we had chartered said that things on the border were getting dangerous, and if we didn't go now, they'd leave without us. But the Costa Rican government kept sending us confusing cables, first allowing us into the country for 3 days, then revoking our visas and demanding we bus straight through to the Nicaraguan border. Trouble was starting much earlier than we'd expected, and no one could agree on what we should do.
We have to make a decision. We've got 5 minutes. The man who owns the buses has got to go now. If we go now, we go to the border, to the Nicaraguan border. If we want to wait, he'll leave the bus here for an hour. We have to pay him $5,000, okay? So if we stay here and we don't go, we might not find buses that will take us. I mean, we have to make a decision. We have 5 minutes.
Can we please go across the border? Can we come to a consensus on going across the border in the buses and having a discussion about the pros and cons of how we did this action? But if we can get into Costa Rica with longer than a 12-hour visa, I think that